Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Hey, it's me, Egbert. E-G-G-B-U-R-T. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
That is John Combest coughing into the microphone there. Don't feel bad about it. And I am Brad. Together we make BJ, bjshow.co. Okay, John, here we've gotten almost 3/4 of the way through our show, and we haven't said one thing about the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, that was allegedly last night, correct?
the one of the big stories is the Travis Kelce bump. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't know the bump.
At one point, matter of fact, this is interesting because I looked at this morning. There's a gazillion different views of this, and it's all over the internet. At one point in time, when things were not going well for the Chiefs, Travis Kelce walked over to Coach Reed.
Yes. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
And gave him like a chest bump.
Yep.
and obviously they were not talking about where they're going for dinner after the Super Bowl.
It was out of anger.
Yeah, it was.
And I believe it was because Kelce, at the point of the fumble, Kelce wasn't in on the play. Is that what it is, or he wasn't on the field when that happened?
Yeah, he wasn't in the game, and
that's what it was. Okay,
I think it was like sort of like put me in, coach, kind of confrontation or stuff like that. So I thought was interesting. Okay, now there's a couple of interesting things here. Okay. Typically, for years and years and years, except for last year and this year, one of the traditions is there's an interview of the president on the network, okay? Didn't happen last year, didn't happen this year. But what happened yesterday? Did you see the video that they released from President Biden?
No, about the Super Bowl? I didn't see it.
No. Has nothing to do with the Super Bowl. Matter of fact, if you think I'm kidding about this, look this up. He goes on this rant about shrinkflation.
Oh, I didn't see this yesterday.
Oh,
Brad.
You have to watch this.
And so the idea here is that he says that not only – here's the headline. Video stunned social media. Is this a joke? So he's got to be – there's no way he's serious, right?
Oh, no, he was dead serious.
Okay.
He essentially says that this is the terrible thing that's happening. He says, you get a bag of chips and you're paying the same price, but it's not the same number of chips. And he goes into the ice cream thing. I'm going like, dude, lay off the ice cream because does that, let's be honest, what does that in most people's minds is that when you get up there in years, you have certain pleasures that your life revolves around. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to be a jerk when I say this, but if you know you're like for example, you know, I didn't have my one grandfather I never knew because of the fact that it's a whole weird story with that. My other grandfather I really never knew because he died when I was 2 years old. So I really didn't have any grandfathers growing up. But when I grow up, my one grandmother, all she would talk about was eating candy. Now, the bizarre part of it was...
Yeah, like that was her treat as an old lady.
Yes, and she was diabetic, which didn't help anything. But, I mean, I'm going like, okay, so your life revolves around, and she would tell you, oh, this certain candy, I love this one. It has such good taste to it, and I love the fact that it's got sprinkles on top of it, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so he goes into this bizarre video where he's complaining about the manufacturers and shrinkflation. Now... You think I'm kidding? You got to watch this.
So I'm looking at these headlines now. So this is a really interesting angle here, is to take it out on grocery manufacturers.
Yes, that's what he's doing. He's calling them out.
Yeah, so like Pepsi and Frito-Lay are to blame for inflation because of the way they're packaging their materials.
Well, the problem is that if you go behind the scenes and you're a corporate kind of guy, you know, John, with what you did, the problem is if your raw materials keep going up. And like, for example, there's a situation in California. Here's perfect, and this is maybe sort of not on topic, but on topic to a certain degree. McDonald's are the legislation in California, I think it went into effect beginning of the year, requires all fast food employees to be paid at least $20 an hour, okay? And there are some people claiming that if you go to one of these California McDonald's and you get the Big Mac combo meal, which is the Big Mac, fries, and a soda, it's now $18. Now
Yeah.
I can tell you, I can be honest with you. Over the weekend, I had the craving for Jack in the Box. I'd not had a Jack in the Box meal in a long time. I went to the Jack in the Box and I ordered a combo. I ordered the number 1, which was the bacon Swiss burger. I used to pay like $7-8 for that combo. It was $12.50 with tax. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, at that point, $12.50, I can go to a nice restaurant like Cyberg's, which is locally owned, to promote them, and have a really good burger and a really good order French fries. And let's say I want to cap the bill at like $14-15. I just order water. I don't drink soda. So in other words, for $15, I can have a really good burger. Or I can go to Applebee's. I can go to practically any bar in town, and get the bar food and get a good burger, a good bar burger for like $10-11. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's happened in California is now it's the law of unintended consequences. A lot of the fast food places are looking at automating more of their stuff. Like you already saw the thing.
That's what's going to happen.
You already saw the thing with White Castle experimenting with the automatic French fry making machine.
We talked about that last week.
Right.
Yeah.
So the problem is that if you're, and this is the interesting thing, this is somebody like Joe Biden, who's been a political person all his life. He doesn't understand that when you run a business and let's say you're in an industry that has a very, very tight profit margin, you're not making a lot off each widget or car, whatever you sell, that all of a sudden if your labor costs go up, and if the price of steel goes up, and the price of copper goes up, which is used in the wiring harness, the price of aluminum goes up, you do one of two things. You either eat the cost, and maybe you get to the point where you're not making any money or making practically no money at all, or you raise your price. In the case of a lot of these, snack food manufacturers, what they did was they just made the portion smaller. They made the candy bars have less, chocolate in them. Physically they made them smaller. And it's to the point where he's going off on them. And I'm going like, dude, not their fault, I mean,
yeah, and you know what? So when you mentioned this would sound familiar, and I was trying to figure out where I heard this before. 1 week ago, on that macroeconomics call that I listen to every week, I listen to 2 of them every day, and one of them this is via Hedgeye. Biden's chair of Biden's Council of Economic Advisors said last week that grocery manufacturers have seen elevated margins. Here's the quote, particularly in the grocery sector, and have taken note that there needs to be more pass-through there to consumers. So that makes sense. So it looks like Biden's counsel said this, close to maybe 10 days ago. It was reported a week ago. And then I bet you they said, look, here's when we're going to have the most attention from consumers. Eating snacks out of a bag is Super Bowl. That makes perfect sense. So that's consistent with what his economic advisors have said about. And then I also heard that this could have something to do with, when you look at mergers and acquisitions in the grocery arena or in consumer packaged goods, you would have an administration that would look less favorably at those mergers, be less likely to approve those, because you're going to start blaming the food industry for inflation rather than your economic policies.
Well, I mean, and part of the problem has to do with the fact that you have, through the years, you have heightened, intense regulation of industries. I mean, you go back, 50, 60, 70 years, and once again, you and I have talked about this before. I'm not union bashing. I'm stating a fact. One of the things that unions did extremely well 100 years ago was they pointed out the fact that a lot of these factories were very, very dangerous places to work. People lost arms, legs, they were killed, they got their heads chopped off, whatever the situation was, okay? The unions came in and said, okay, this is not right. We want to, A, make the working conditions better, and B, we want to make our workers make more money. You know what? And I'm thinking to myself, got it. Well, nowadays, that portion of what the union's position is pretty much moot because of the fact that you've got all the government regulations.
You got OSHA,
right?
That's charged with doing exactly that.
Right, and the unions do a good job of, depending upon the union, if you go through the apprenticeship or
training and getting you the skills you need.
Right, and they teach safety. They teach the kind of things that and once again, they do that on the front end, but on the back end, it's the government that essentially says, like I kid about this all the time. One of my favorite things is people will put pictures on Facebook, and my favorite little comment is, "Can you count the OSHA violations?" Let's say you see for example,
especially roofers.
Well,
you'll have a little Mexican kid up on a roof.
Well, yes, but see, and once again, there's all sorts of crazy things that. Why do I know this? Because of the fact that I'm in a regulated industry. I own these radio stations. We have tower sites and things like that we have to have we have to have certain signs at certain distance away from the antennas that you're in a radiation zone, and you can don't touch this and stay away from that and danger high voltage and blah 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 blah. And if I don't have those signs, one day Mr. FCC or more importantly Mr. OSHA shows up and say, "Okay, you've got a high voltage source right here. Where's your danger high voltage signs?" And then you have to have, example, at transmitter sites, theoretically you're supposed to have what they call 3 zones. You're supposed to have an outside perimeter, an inside or a center perimeter, and then a inside perimeter with warning signs. If you're on the outside, don't cross this line, your hair could fall out, stuff like that kind of stuff. But once again, government regulated. So what's that done to the cost of goods and things like that? It increases the cost.
Yeah.
And
we'll see a lot more desperation between now and the whatever. And I'm sure they have pretty good polling on before they went out with this. I'm sure they had across the country, and particularly in battleground states, surveys of, okay, here are the messages that consumers are willing to believe, and are they willing to shift blame of these economic things from politicians to food companies? And if you say, for example, that companies, look at Pepsi, they just made so much more money this year, can you believe they're giving you less Fritos?
Well, but see, the consumer thing, I can tell you things that we use around the radio station here. I can tell you stuff that I used to buy 5 years ago that now has quadrupled or quintupled, is that right? Quintupled?
Yeah, quintupled.
Quintupled in price. I mean, for example, there's crazy stuff that I use, for certain things. Matter of fact, I have to be honest with you. You know what happened to me yesterday? I'm in Nirvana. I've got my new Klein F connector compression tool, and oh my God, I'm in Nirvana. I'm a tool nerd, and we put these connectors on our G6, which is what we use for satellite receivers and stuff like that. And I've avoided this for a long time. I used to use the old crimp RG59, the F connectors, and I bought the stripper and the compression tool from Klein. Oh my God, it's like orgasmic. I'm telling you.
Well, you know what? If Shelley Barr were here, she would take that audio and take out the word stripper and orgasmic and just your slight exhale there, Brad, and she would make it a drop.
But see, my son for Christmas, when I went to see him, my son gave me something which is so cool. He gave me a Knipex set of pliers.
Are those some sort? When you say Knipex, are those some sort of clamps?
Knipex. No, it's a brand name, and it's made in Germany, and they are the most
German manufacturing.
They are the most amazing tools.
They make the trains run on time.
You talk to a plumber, and if a plumber shows up at your house and you say, "Hey man, you got any Knipex tools?" and the guy's going to look at you. If he's a good plumber, he's going to say, "Don't we all?" Because it's like the creme de la creme of pliers and various tools, stuff like that. Am I a nerd? But see,
so
once
he
again,
knew to get it for you. Well, that's good. That's good.
It's cool, and you have to see it. It's my God, it's so cool. And here's what's interesting: you hold this pair of pliers in your hand, and you hold a Chinese pair of pliers in your hand. It's like the difference between a Yugo and a Ferrari. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I bet. First of all, the German ones aren't communist.
Well, they used to be on the East German side.
Depending on how you look at it.
Depending upon which side of the Berlin Wall they're on. Okay, we're winding things down. Has this show made any sense at all?
It has. Especially the Kelsey bump. I like that at first. And then I thought maybe you were talking about the viewership because of Taylor Swift. And that would be a Taylor and Travis bump. But you mean the actual bump, yeah. And
by the way, I thought she was supposed to be in Japan at a concert in Tokyo.
Oh, they made a big production of how she flew back and she made it back for the game, and isn't it great, and all this stuff
Didn't she have another concert to do?
Yeah, probably.
Tokyo is what? Where are they at? Are they like 12 hours behind us or ahead of us?
China's usually 13, so I'm not sure exactly where Japan is in that.
Well, they're 13 behind us, correct? Isn't that the way it is?
No, China would be 13 ahead.
Ahead of us? Where's the international date line? Okay, so we're behind. We're 6 hours behind. Right now, we're not in daylight. We're 6 hours behind GMT. So now right now it's coming up at 8 o'clock. So it would be GMT would be what 0200. Is that right? 2 o'clock in the afternoon is my
Yeah, I think so. So in China is either, I think they go back and forth between, they're either 13 or 14 hours ahead of us in St. Louis.
Interesting. You would know because you're an international guy, right? Okay, we have to get out of here. It is time for us to depart. It's time for us to bring in Armstrong and Getty. Talk to you tomorrow, John.
See you later.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?